Hello everyone, I'm Ron Grant coming to you live and direct from Tortola in the Virgin Islands. It is Journey to Elections 2023 and you're watching Just for the Record. Today I am joined with Progressive Virgin Islands Movement at-large candidate, Miss Ingrid Moses Scatliffe. We'll be right back after a quick commercial break.
Rashford made it. Manchester United have come from behind to lead.
At home or on the go, watch CCT Live. Download our app and carry your favorite TV shows, news, or live sports anywhere you go. Visit cctbvi.com/live, select your package, and tune in.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome back again, everyone, and thank you for your time. As promised, I'm joined with Miss Ingrid Moses Scatliffe, the Progressive Virgin Islands Movement candidate, at-large candidate, that is one of four. Miss Moses Scatliffe, thank you so much for your time and welcome to Just for the Record.
Thank you, Ron, for having me today.
It is an absolute pleasure. I want to begin. For persons who may not know, who is Ingrid Moses Scatliffe?
Ingrid Moses Scatliffe. She's a mother of one. She's a partner in a local law firm. She has brothers and sisters, and her parents, both are alive. Grandparents are all deceased. She has two careers. Her first career after finishing university was a banking career, which I did successfully up until the end of 2002. Then I changed careers and went to law school. I did my master's at the same time, came back home in 2007. I was then appointed as the Chief Registrar of Lands for Land Registry with the government of the Virgin Islands. I worked for 2.5 years. In January 2010, went into the law firm that was founded by myself and two other partners, and I practiced for a couple of years until I was appointed as Speaker of the House in December 2011 actually. November was the elections.
Okay. Now, you mentioned about your parents. What part of the island are you from?
I am from the 6th District,
All right.
Purcell State, and we say Puzzle.
Indeed, indeed. Now, I'm from the 6th District as well. What would you say about your upbringing within District 6?
I had a wonderful upbringing. Everybody lived as a community, as a family. We were in and out of everybody's house. All the children went into everybody's house. We were disciplined, of course, by all of the family members. Parents, it didn't matter whether or not they were your children, they disciplined you, but they also demonstrated a lot of love, a lot of caring. My mom, both parents worked, but my mom worked in the hospitality industry. She worked at nights, and actually it was the community and the neighbors that raised me. Because when she worked at nights, my entire primary and secondary school, I was the one at home at nights, and I had neighbors who took me in and made sure I did my homework and did everything. I made sure I had my meals, my breakfast, my lunch, dinner, and did what you had to do. So it was a wonderful embrace. Everybody knew each other. Everybody looked out for each other. Everybody cared for each other. And I grew up in a Christian home. It was a very tight community in Purcell. We all went to church, whether it was the New Testament church, which was pastor best at the time.
A different location as well.
We went to Purcell Methodist Church. Some of us went to both. I went to both.
Okay.
So it's a upbringing that I cherish because that community, they are all responsible for me being where I am and who I am, and I will forever remember and cherish that.
Now, you're a lot older. Is that community the same today?
It has changed significantly over the years. A lot of the persons are still there. The homes, I mean, back then, we all had wooden homes, but they were the best wooden homes you ever saw. And the inside were really nice, and those homes have been converted into concrete structures. And the families that were there historically are still there. Their children may have grown up, built their homes, relocated elsewhere in the territory, but my mom is still there. My father's property is still there. I'm there literally several days a week. My sister is there. Everybody is still connected there. So you drive up the road, I stop, I talk to Miss Diana Richardson because you have to pass her gate. My mom is there, and Miss Amazine is now up on the hill, but Miss Osborne is on the other side. And then you have the Clarks over on the other side, and you go over on Johnson Gut side. So it's there, but you have a lot of persons who have now moved into the district, and it's changed because the makeup is different from what was there before. You know, seeing a lot of young men on the corners. We didn't have that when I was growing up. We were all out. We played in the roads. We drove through, rode up bikes, walked through the entire village, chatting with people. But it was togetherness.
Okay.
A serious togetherness that I think is desperately lacking, not just in the 60s, but it's just lacking on a whole in the territory. We're not caring people the way we were when I was raised.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the older generation who, my parents, your parents, because I know your parents as well from very young, who fostered and nurtured not only their children, but the children in the district on a whole. They played a part in ensuring that they did what they had to do. You go to school, you're not hanging out on the corner. They see you there, you got to go to school. Things like that, and I think that is what's lacking now, because you don't know people anymore.
Now, just for the record, there is somewhat of a misconception, and I'd love to give you the opportunity to correct that. Persons would say that Ingrid is not a people's person. She doesn't speak to you. Just for the record, if you have heard these statements before, or maybe this is the first time you're hearing, what would you say to persons that are seemingly of that opinion?
I have heard that before, and I tell people, and I've heard my friends say that persons have said that to them, and they have told them otherwise. Sometimes we draw inferences because we see somebody, whether they look composed or they might have their face set in a particular manner, and we draw inferences because just by looking at them without saying anything. My mom is a friendly person, my father is a friendly person, I'm a friendly person. I say hello to everybody I meet. I say good afternoon and good morning to everybody I meet. When I went to the UK to study, I was doing that, and then people weren't answering because it's the strangest thing, but that's how I was raised. So I would say to them, give me a chance. Approach me, ask a question, and you would see I'm not going to rebuff, because I fully believe that we're all human beings. It doesn't matter to me what color of skin you have, where you came from, what job you do. That's irrelevant, because at the end of the day, we all bleed red blood. We're all human beings, we have feelings, and for that, I think we need to really take the time, and it doesn't take a lot to just be kind. So approach me. Approach me, give me the opportunity, and say, hi Ingrid, hello. And we open up and have a conversation. Yeah.
All right. You mentioned about your experience, of course, both in the private and public sector. I want to start with the public sector. Most recently, we would remember you as a former Speaker of the House of Assembly. So you had an opportunity to interact. You sit in the House. You were responsible for the House, essentially. What were some of your takeaways from that role as Speaker of the House of Assembly?
It's an opportunity for you to learn how the government machinery works. It's an opportunity for you to learn how legislation is actually made. Granted, the Speaker sits and basically administers the operation of the House. She doesn't vote here, she doesn't vote unless there's a tie and it requires a casting vote, but the decisions are actually made by the members. But at the same time, you're responsible for ensuring that things happen whenever they're supposed to happen. You need to know the standing orders, you need to know on skin May, you need to know the Constitution, and you need to know the elections. Like every piece of legislation that touches and concerns what we do as a people, you need to familiarize yourself. The bills come to the House, yes, you're just presiding, but you need to also understand what those bills say, how they affect people, because you're going to be asked questions. They know you're there, they know you don't vote, but you need to also be aware. And I think it helped me a lot. I've always had an interest in government and people, because we are affected. It doesn't matter who government or which government is in, we are the people who are affected by the decisions that are made. So I pay keen attention to what is happening. And I've also seen where legislation comes and you have your views and you also express those views. They're not expressed necessarily from the bench, because that is not your role at the time.
Correct.
But you give your feedback, you go into committee stage, and there are things that you can point out, and the legal background actually helps you significantly, because you can pick up things, and once you prepare and you read, you know exactly what's going to come, and you bring it to some of the members' attention. But it gives you a good opportunity to be in the thick of things and understand what is actually happening, and you have an opportunity to guide as well, because we've been doing a lot of things, not because we've been doing it that way for the longest time means that it's necessarily correct or the proper way to do it, or even that it's legal to do it. But when you don't know, you operate from a place where you just don't know. And I feel when you know better, or something comes to your attention that you didn't know before, but you know now, then you have to act upon it. You can't sit and pretend that you didn't know, because the repercussions that will come at some point could and may very well be detrimental to us all.
Now, with that in mind, you would have obviously observed, having served in that capacity, continue to observe the House of Assembly. What are some of your major concerns when you look at perhaps the conduct? And when I mean this, I mean in a very broad sense, but I'll give you an example. When you sat as Speaker, one of the things you seemed really agitated about was the delinquent attendance and lateness of members. When you observe that type of behavior in others, what are some of your concerns?
Stay tuned for more Just for the Record right after this.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. My name is Kamal Haynes. Most of you know me from 284 News, but now you get to see me in a different light on my very own show called Health is Wealth. We have Joel Turnbull.
I don't want you to arch your back when you're pulling down.
Milton McLean.
First of all, right, your footwork.
Stephen Payne.
That was a 9 out of 10. I know you got the service down pat.
Steve Augustine.
You did a pretty hard workout today, so perhaps...
And as you can see, it's actually
you're feeling it.
Alonzo Boynes.
Taekwondo.
Adam Murrows.
I'll speak as if you're an absolute beginner.
I am an absolute beginner.
You are an absolute beginner.
And Seth Graham.
It bites.
It will bite.
Get your water, get your fruits and veggies, and experience a wealth of knowledge about getting healthy.
There goes my new car. Guess I'm back on my bike.
Your bike? CG offers new car replacement. Remember my monster truck days? Well, one night I attempted a 50-foot pogo double backflip. I landed it and went to karaoke. It wasn't until afterward that my car got hit by that fisherman. He gave me some great mahi-mahi though. Anyway, they paid fast and got me in a new car. Now call a cab. I want you to meet my alpaca guy.
New car replacement for the first year of ownership. CG Insurance. Good like that.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us.
What are some of your major concerns when you look at perhaps the conduct? And when I mean this, I mean in a very broad sense, but I'll give you an example. When you sat as Speaker, one of the things you seemed really agitated about was the delinquent attendance and lateness of members. When you observe that type of behavior in others, what are some of your concerns?
It's a pet peeve because it shows that you don't respect people's time. When a period of time is set to do something, you need to be on time every time, because as it relates to the House of Assembly, it's announced in advance that the sitting is taking place, day and time. There are persons who are tuned into the radio, they're tuned into the internet, there are persons who may come to the House of Assembly, and then they're sitting there and the members are not there. Now, granted, some members are there on time. The unfortunate reality is that you need a quorum in order to commence the proceedings of the House. The Speaker isn't included in the quorum, so you need to have 7 persons there to start the meeting. And from my experience as well, one of the challenges is that the premier at the time doesn't necessarily, because you want to be inclusive of both government members and opposition members. So you may very well have a quorum of government members, but you want to make sure at least one opposition member is there, so it's balanced, so that when the proceedings start, you can say you have both government and at least one, if not more, opposition members. But we have to do better, because it's a territory. Young people are looking. Time is time. Not because you're in the Caribbean. If it's 10 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock. And say something. And if it doesn't start on time when you go in, you have to let the members know it's not acceptable. And it's really a challenge, because it's just getting worse.
Understood. You are a learned attorney, and you have spent extensive time defending on both sides, I would assume. I want to ask you, at this present state in our territory, there are a number of issues that are affecting our youth. Persons like to automatically get crime. But when you look at the entire system, there are a lot of concerns. What are some of your major concerns as it pertains to the judicial system?
There are too many persons and too many young people coming before the courts. One, there are too many offenses against women and girls coming before the courts too, which means we have a bigger societal problem in our society. And we need to get to the root cause of that problem. A lot of the youngsters, I haven't been to youth court in a while, but I remember going there before and I was astounded. When I see school children at youth court in their school clothes, that's the first thing. But then when you start hearing the truancy levels of some of those students, and then when it gets beyond that and you get to hear what the social development inquiry report says, and you listen, and you really are able to determine those children were not all that, they were not that way all the time. Something happened, and it had to have happened in the home environment. Something caused them to start to change. And it usually, from what I saw, primary school, scene 5, class 5, farm 1, to get into high school, it's like you get lost in the system. I do believe we need to separate, we need a secondary,
a junior and a secondary
school.
And
a secondary, a senior school and a junior school, because I went into high school at 10. When you have young 10 and 11 and 12-year-olds interacting with 16, 7 and 18-year-olds, now you may be a parent who ensures that you have mechanisms in place and not expose your children to certain things. But there are also the flip side where there are children who there are no mechanisms in place. No fault of the parents. Sometimes the parents are busy working. They're latchkey kids, meaning that they're home alone, literally raising themselves. We don't put mechanisms in place. We have all these electronic devices, but who ensures that your access is curtailed? You have little children mimicking what they see. So we as parents and adults have to lead by example. Children don't, and young people don't tell them, do what I say and not what I do. That's how we were raised. That doesn't work now. They look at what it is you're doing. So we have to lead by example, talk the talk, so that they can see you don't do that. That's not right. So fundamental problems go back, and it's a social problem. The young people are facing with a number of issues. Their parents are the same way. They're struggling. Now, when children can't get, I'll just use a smartphone device. Some parents are able to give their children all these electronic fancy stuff. But there are also other children whose parents can't afford it. But then when you go into that environment and you see that other children have it, it's not to say that you shouldn't want what somebody else have. But the reality is that child feels a way that they are not able to get those same things that you have. And then when it's thrown in their face, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to react. They're going to respond. Either start stealing or make it bullying you, because that's coming from a deeper place of discontentment within them. And as parents, my parents didn't have a lot. I didn't grow up with a lot at all. But you're made do with what you had. And you need to be able to satisfy yourself. But we have to explain that to the young people and just show them. And show them love. Because the streets, they show them love. At home, we don't know half of the things that people are dealing with at home. And you have to go back there, because if they don't have a safe space to just be a child and be allowed to thrive, they're able to get 3 square meals a day, healthy meals. They're able to get the material that they need to help them to do their work. And even children who are struggling, it's not that they're dumb. They're children who just rebel, simply because they just don't want to. Or the traditional way of teaching doesn't work. Some children can't sit there for several hours. It pained my heart during COVID. I couldn't imagine how those children cope, how the parents cope, because we're not teachers. We're not designed to do that. And then you're teaching electronically. And then the teachers, I couldn't fathom.
Understood. When we look at our territory, we are facing quite a bit. It would almost seem to some that the territory hasn't gotten a break since the hurricanes of 2017, and then COVID, and of course the COI. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you sat or were interviewed by the Commission of Inquiry, am I correct?
Yes, I was.
When you reflect upon what would have gotten us here within the territory, what are your thoughts on the process and the findings of the COI?
It shouldn't have to take a body to come in to tell us what we need to fix. We know what the problems are. We're not the worst people. Everybody has problems. But they came in, they told us what, they opened up, as far as I'm concerned, a cesspool of matters. And we have to learn from that. It shouldn't have happened simply, but we were supposed to be the ones making sure that we put mechanisms in place. We have to learn to save ourselves from ourselves. But we don't always do that because we have to work collectively for the one goal. If we have a national plan, it shouldn't matter which government comes in place. That is the plan, and it's prioritized in terms of what the territory actually needs, whether it's education, health, whatever, it has to be prioritized, and you put the development goals there. So persons, wherever you come, whatever team you come from, this is what we need to do, and not leave it up to individuals to have to deal with that and just change, and then it ends up costing us millions. So where we are now, put mechanisms in place to save us from ourselves. Put accountability and transparency, it is key. Once people know what it is you are doing, why you are doing it, how you are doing it, it's a protection mechanism. It really is a protection mechanism for all of us, because I may give you a slap on the wrist, and when we don't, it's just like a child. You have a 2-year-old and they do something they're not supposed to do. You don't do anything, you don't say anything. And that keeps happening. What do you think is going to happen when they become 10? The very same things that you didn't control back there is going to get out of control. So we have to put the mechanisms in place to help us not get into these issues that we're having. The legislation needs to be tightened, but having said that, you also need to have a fair balance, because we have to be able to help people, but help people who really need the help, and have a systematic way of doing that, so that people are not afraid to ask for help. There's no shame in asking for. We all need help in some form or fashion, but you have to be able to maintain your integrity and your pride as well when you're asking for that help.
Understood. As it pertains to the myriad of issues, your track record obviously speaks for itself, both in the private sector, banking, and the public sector in various capacities. What are some of the key areas, once elected, that you, or the people rather, could expect you to tackle?
There are a number of problems in the public service, in the public sector on a whole. If the public service is running efficiently, the private sector thrives. Right now, there are major issues with entrepreneurs, small businesses, business on a whole, just trying to conduct business. They are mirrored. I mean, I can speak. You have issues almost. There are few government departments you get excellent service from, but key government departments, we have to do better than that. And it's sad to have to say that, but there are issues that need to be resolved in the service.
Okay.
And we have to tackle them head on, because it's affecting every other aspect in the private sector. The private sector can't function effectively when the public service doesn't operate like a well-oiled piece of machinery. And that has to be addressed.
Okay. Anything else?
You asked, so we have
the key areas of tackle once elected.
Banking. That has to be addressed. Banking now is a headache for a number of individuals. It's extremely difficult for persons to get financing. You need banking services on Virgin Gorda. That should have never been allowed to happen. Not that you can tell, but we have to find ways and means to put us back where we know we were before, because we're advancing as a people. So why are these services now being trenched back? Banking services have to be done. The cost of living, major problems.
Okay.
And it all ties back into the youth and people, because you go to the supermarkets, you see the cost. You can't afford to buy. Everything here at this particular period of time, it's a cost, and a heavy cost that families are actually struggling to cope on a day-to-day basis. So we have to find ways in which we can help them. The high school, we need to put a food program in the high school, whether it's breakfast or lunch, but something so that every child, every day, can get a decent meal, because some parents may not be able to afford it. Some parents are not home because they leave work to go very early, and nobody's there to ensure the child themselves, because remember, they're still children. They could be 14, 15, but they're still a child living in your home, so they need some monitoring to ensure that they do the things that need to be done. Education, the same thing. Teachers, the payment of teachers, I've heard that teachers leaving, teachers are nurturers. So we have to ensure that they're paid, compensated adequately. And it goes back to the public service, because I know there was a compensation review being done and that would be completed. But you have to compensate people for the work that they're doing. Those teachers are why you and I are here.
Correct.
From as very early as kindergarten. So we have to respect that. The police, they protect us. It's the same thing that has to be done as well. The nurses and the doctors, it's the same thing.
Do you think that some of the negative progression in regards to the service that we're being offered, the lack of service that we're being offered, the depth of sacrifice and aptitude from various public officers is as a result of simple things like salary review, where persons just don't feel respected and valued?
Stay tuned for more Just for the Record right after this.
Today, I am doing coral treatments with Beyond the Reef. Today, we are doing shark research. So today, we are doing whale research with Beyond the Reef. And wherever I go, I take CCT with me because my life is unlimited.
Yo, everything good, Dad?
Aye. This thing got me one way, Daddy.
What do you mean?
Ever since I hook up with this thing, can't eat, I can't sleep. This is the first thing I touch it when I reach home.
What do you really? Hey, this ain't like you know.
Dad, this thing got me staying home, keeping out that trouble me.
Wow. What your name is?
Shit. I talking about my CCT life.
Don't worry about missing your favorite series, sports, news, and local programming. Come to CCT today and sign up for CCT Live to access over 80 channels. CCT Live. Bring it home.
1 month free trial turn into 5. 5 months turn into, well, you know I huff. I watching ball. I been watching football. Dad, Nickelodeon, Paw Patrol. I am hooked. Hook, I tell you.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us.
Do you think that some of the negative progression in regards to the service that we're being offered, the lack of service that we're being offered, the depth of sacrifice and aptitude from various public officers is as a result of simple things like salary review, where persons just don't feel respected and valued?
I think that's part of the problem. That's a big part, because there's a direct correlation between work performance and compensation. There are some people you don't feel valued as an employee, and that's a fundamental. We all human beings, we like to feel valued. So you have to try and pay people. Now sometimes pay isn't always monetary.
Correct.
There are other benefits that you can give, because you may not be in a position to always give that monetary value at the time, but you have to reward people for their performance. And that's part of the problem that public officers have as well. They don't feel valued, they don't feel compensated properly for what it is they're given. And there's some excellent public officers in the service.
I agree. Yeah. Now, your name has been called before as the election times approaches, persons wanting you to run, persons saying that she may run, she may consider, but you have finally given of yourself and provided yourself to the people to serve in yet another capacity. Why did you eventually and now decide to run for public office?
You're right. I thought long and hard. It took me a long time to get to this place where I can comfortably say, I think this is the right time for me to do this, because I want to help. Yes, people can say, well, you can help where you are, and we do that. But I think I have skills, talents, and attributes that I can help reset or set the chart for the territory over the next several years. Because the reality, you have a 4-year-old.
A 2-year-old.
A 2-year-old, right. It's for your 2-year-old, it's for his children, and generations to come. It's for the younger generations to come. We have to ensure that we try and put things in place to ensure that they can sustain and be able to lead productive lives.
All right. I have to ask you in regards to your purpose in this life. Many persons don't take that into perspective. What would you say when you think of Ingrid Moses Scatliffe, your purpose is, and how is that purpose aligned with running for office?
I like to help people. I have a soft heart. My mother is one of the kindest persons I know. Her personality, sweet, quiet,
absolutely, I agree.
Not controversial. It's just she would give her last dollar. And sometimes I'm protective because people like that, people would take advantage of them. But I have the same tendencies because I cannot stay immune to people suffering. And every day, I try and do something that I can help persons because people are hurting. So my purpose is if I can help make the territory a better place for the majority of the persons, then that's what I do. And it starts by us helping one. If each of us try and help one, whether it's a kind word, whether it's whatever they need to get done, people ask a myriad of questions. And they call and it doesn't hurt. Because yes, I'm a lawyer, yes. But the amount of pro bono work, I didn't even think about it until I made the decision now. And you ask, well, what are your accomplishments? What are you doing? You start really thinking. And it's like every day, because when you hear the stories or when certain things come to your attention, you just do it because it feels like the right thing to do. They don't even know, but you just do it because it's going to make a difference in that person's life. And for me, that's my purpose. I have been able to thrive because of our forefathers' hard work. My parents, your parents, visitors, citizens alike who have helped build the territory and made it what it is. And for that, I want to be able to help people as well because we need to help. I think that's going to bring about the difference. And we need a united front in order to do that, meaning everybody, not a select few, not some people because of who you are, where you're from. No, it's people on a whole. Once you live here and you've chosen to make the BVI your home, then we have a responsibility to help you, help us make this a comfortable place for all of us to thrive and be successful in our individual lives.
Just for the record, when it is all said and done and persons go to the poll on election day, I want you to speak to the people for a moment. Why should the people of this territory elect Ingrid Moses Scatliffe to the next House of Assembly?
I'm a principled person. I believe in transparency. I believe in accountability. I believe in empowering people. And right now we need to empower the entire territory. We need to empower the youth and we need to empower women. But we also need to inspire persons. A lot of people have lost hope. Election season is here. I've heard so many people say they're not going to vote. They weren't planning to vote. And that is sad.
What do you say to those persons?
But if you don't vote, the very outcome that you're here struggling with now, there's a high probability that that outcome will remain. So how are you going to get it changed? We have to go out to vote. You have to have a view. You can't. And it has happened to me in the past where I became so despondent with the state of affairs. It affected me to the point where my health was being affected. Because when you love your country the way I love, because it has been good to me, it has been good to my parents, then you feel obligated to ensure that it goes beyond what you were able to benefit from. And I think that's what we all have to recognize. So voters, you may feel down. I think we need to inspire hope that better is going to come. Yes, we've had we had the hurricanes, we had COVID, we had COI, we had the arrest of our former premier, we have the cost, we have all of these issues. But if we don't vote, and don't vote because you like the person, vote because you think the person can do a good job, that they're competent, that they're strong, that they're capable, they're going to stand up and do what's right, they're going to be transparent, they're going to be accountable to the people. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to either benefit or suffer from the decisions that are made on polling day. So I'm asking the voting population and everyone, to give me and give the entire PIVM team an opportunity to come forward and give us a chance to try and reset the territory, put mechanisms in place to help better and improve our lives so that all citizens, residents, visitors, Virgin Islanders can really live one BVI as we are meant to be.
Thank you for that. I have a series of about 4 questions. You are free to say yes or no, or if you want to expound on why you may support or not these particular legislations. I'll start with the legalization or decriminalization of marijuana. Would you support that?
In small quantities, yes. Because, yes, there's a social aspect to getting addicted, but we have so many young. It's a recreational drug. I was told every other child is using it. My mother told me this week she met an 11-year-old, who was high, who didn't go to school, that she had to speak to and encourage and get him to move from where he was. 11. So
I've seen that with
small amounts. Yes, I know that the territory has concerns, and I remember years back persons coming to speak, but decriminalizing very small amounts, I don't have an issue. Ultimately, there are some pieces of legislation that the territory, the people on a whole, need to have a say in. So my personal opinion would be my personal opinion. But there are decisions that affect us collectively, that the public needs to have a say in what they think, because whatever the outcome is for the majority of the people, then that is what the decision needs to be, albeit my personal decision may be contrary from what that bigger decision is that the populace wants.
Okay. The legalization of parimutuel betting.
There are benefits in doing that. Once the legislation is in place, it is properly regulated to ensure that it's not abused, because every system you know that has abuse, but it's happening. It's happening here. There are foul cockfights that I know happen. You have the horse track. It's no different. We travel away, we go to the casinos. We all do it. We do lottery tickets.
Thank you for acknowledging that it is already present.
We know the people here are selling the lottery tickets. We know who they are selling them. It's known. So then why are we saying, we know that it's happening, we recognize that it's happening, we're even participating in it. But then we want to say, no. No, I was raised in a Christian community. I have very strong Christian values, and I have very strong personal values. I know what I wouldn't do and what I would do. But at the end of the day, when you are elected, you have to act in the best interest of what the majority of the people want. That is my view on parimutuel betting.
And abortion?
I think women have a right to say what happens to their bodies. That's my personal view. But if we're going to have a debate on abortion, clearly the populace again has to have a say. Now, some of these things are going to require a referendum, which I am all for, because at the end of the day, if decisions are going to be made that are going to affect all of us, then you need to be able to hear how it's going to affect you, what the decision is, so that you can be informed and make a rational decision whether yay or nay. But I think women have a right to have a say over their bodies.
And the legalization of same-sex marriage.
For that, it's the same thing with a referendum. I don't have any issues whatsoever in persons deciding who their partner is. I think the bigger issue with legalizing same-sex marriages, it has to do with succession planning and your assets, ensuring that you have a proper mechanism in place legally, so that if something happens and that union isn't recognized, albeit it's a partnership, then something were to happen to you, one of the partners dies, there's no legal mechanism in place, then whatever assets you may have acquired over that time, they're left open for the survivor's family. The deceased family, and not necessarily the person, the surviving partner, who would have invested their time, energies, effort into the relationship, into whatever else they may have, and they wouldn't necessarily get anything. But
Right.
those are key decisions that I think, regardless of what anybody's individual personal view is, the populace has to have a say in what they think ought to be done.
I'm going to ask you some very fun questions. I hope they're fun, and you get an opportunity to share what your take is. What is your favorite Virgin Islands cuisine?
What favorite?
Virgin Islands cuisine.
Fish, boiled fish in mayonnaise sauce with dumplings, sweet potato, green banana, and fungi. Favorite fish. I could eat it every day.
Awesome. What's your favorite sister island if you have one?
This is what I say, right? Virgin Gorda is a gem. Anegada, diamond in the rough.
Wow.
Jas Van Dyke is just, yes. It's like, when I go to Jas Van Dyke, time stand still.
Wow.
It's like you're permanent, you just want to hang out on the beach by a bar, doing nothing. So all of them play a significant part in our territory in terms of tourism development and how we market them individually to capitalize on what they have to offer.
All right. Do you have a favorite VI rum or drink?
I'm a little novice. I don't drink alcohol. So let me see. Virgin Island drink. Well, I've had some of the, what do you call those shots that I had down at the paper recently.
The panty dropper, is it?
Yes, I know the panty dropper.
Vodka sour,
Just a
BVI
sip.
vodka.
I have just a sip. I can't handle alcohol,
Understood,
right? And I don't
understood.
drink alcohol. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. What's your favorite VI pastime? When we have a holiday, for example, we recently had one. If you could enjoy and spend, how would you usually spend it?
The holiday on Monday, the best place that you could ever be on that Monday was up at the college for the AHL Stout commemoration activities. If you missed that, you missed everything, because that took us back to a place where clearly we have forgotten, and the struggles and how this holiday came about, and how we as a territory have been able to progress because AHL Stout had a vision. He had a vision. That's why the college is there. That's why a number of things are there. So that, for me, I would spend any holiday with that.
Okay. When you reflect on your journey personally and the journey of the BVI, you mentioned the contributions of persons like H.L. Stout. What are you most proud of being a Virgin Islander?
It's people. I've had people pass through my life from as little as I can remember. I went to, I don't know if persons know this, teacher Gwenny's kindergarten, preschool in Freebottom.
Okay.
That's where I went to. And then when I left there at 4, I went into what was then St. Philip's Primary School. I met some wonderful teachers. And there was a principal
now
there.
Alexandrina Maduro Primary School.
Alexandrina Maduro, correct. But it was St. Philip's at the time. Teacher Elvin Stout, love him dearly, love him. Teacher Hodge, who was married to Calvin Hodge from Anguilla. Teacher Crookshank, Miss Arona Foy. I'm seeing her now. She goes Church of God of Prophecy. I saw her on Monday. Oh my goodness. Her son is named after his father, and I worked with him. He's the director of agriculture.
Miss James.
Correct.
Yes.
She was one of the teachers that they took me and molded me and followed my life. I went into high school. I finished. Teacher Stout, that I call him. He was my mentor. He was my mentor. Love him dearly. He followed me. Even when I came back from University Law School, he was sitting, I think, as the chairman of the Public Service Commission. Every time he came into the meetings, he and I would sit and chat. They touched my life in a way that I could never forget. And I went into the bank. I met a number of persons in there. Now, going into a financial institution at 15 years old, I didn't like them. They were piggish. They snapped at you. But you know why? They demanded you to do better. When you didn't do your work properly, you got raked over the coals. So to ensure you didn't get raked over the coals, you did right. And now I love them. They're my friends. I get along excellent. People like Thelma Penn, Harriet Reimer, Carleen Douglas, David O'Neill. He got me inspired in politics. Corinne Bruley, because when in the bank, when Barclays US Virgin Islands and BVI reported into Barclays, New York. We had functions between all of the groupings, and David and was transferred to BVI to be the operations manager, and Corinne Broley was transferred to St. Thomas. He and I developed a relationship. When he came, I was 16. From then, he nurtured and fostered my interest in politics from that age. And through my entire progression, he was always there. Every time I would come home from law school, we would meet, we'd have serious political discussions about the state of the territory. He was one of those persons who ensured that he wanted to raise your awareness. But I think all of those persons also, with the nurturing that we get,
yes,
is that they recognize something in us and they nurture and they feed it because they can see potential. And that is what I want for every young person here, to be given that opportunity to have people who really care about you, to ensure that they groom you, because your son can be anything he wants to be, whatever it is he wants to be. So people along my life have done that. And then I left the bank, I left law school, and I went into the house and I formed relationship with persons in the government. When I was chief registrar in land registry, I met persons as well in the public service that struck me because they have extremely high standards. There are some very good workers in the public service. And then I interacted with them again when I became speaker. And they are the best of what we have to offer. And members, I got to know them. You know them out publicly.
Yes.
But then when you work closely with them, you learn a lot of things. You recognize things that you have in common, things that you may not necessarily like, but I enjoyed it. I think my journey has prepared me for this time because of the lessons I've learned, the people who have come into my life, who have touched my life in ways and encouraged me to be myself, be true to who you are. Some people may not like my honest opinion, but that's fine because it's just that. It's just my opinion. But always say your opinion, because when you don't, nobody knows what you're thinking, and afterwards you're, well, I didn't know that because you never said anything. You have a voice in the room. Use that voice. And as a woman, more importantly, you have to use that voice. And that's what I'm doing. So I think it's just, and I know I'm going to get in trouble because I called names. And you ought not to do that because I know I forgot persons like Isela Potter, Fresnett Barry, Bonnie Stout, Janet Reimer. It's just it's just a plethora of people that I still connect to now.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And that's what it is. So I am grateful for that support because I had that from a teenager growing up, and those relationships still exist up to today. And I think at the end of the day, we're human beings. We learn a lot from interacting and engaging, and if we can help one another along the way, I think we are to do that. It's the right thing to do.
Well, Ms. Ingrid Moses Scatliffe, just for the record, thank you for the conversation, and thank you for using your democratic right of putting yourself up for service.
Thank you so much for having me, Rod.
Thank you. You're most welcome. Viewers, that's been Just for the Record. We sat down with Progressive Virgin Islands Movement candidate, at-large candidate, Ms. Ingrid Moses Scatliffe in the 2023 general elections. I'm Ron Grant. Goodbye.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. My name is Kamal Haynes. Most of you know me from 284 News, but now you get to see me in a different light on my very own show called Health is Wealth. We have Joel Turnbull.
I don't want you to arch your back when you're pulling down.
Milton McLean.
First of all, right, your footwork.
Stephen Payne.
That was a 9 out of 10. I know you got the service down pat.
Steve Augustine.
You did a pretty hard workout today, so perhaps...
And as you can see, it's actually
you're feeling it.
Alonzo Boynes.
Taekwondo.
Adam Murrows.
I'll speak as if you're an absolute beginner.
I am an absolute beginner.
You are an absolute beginner.
And Seth Graham.
It bites.
It will bite.
Get your water, get your fruits and veggies, and experience a wealth of knowledge about getting healthy.